So for the last several years, I think there was something strange happening in crypto. We built these advanced financial rails, and a regular trader, retail trader, would still behave like an addicted gambler at 2 a.m. in the morning. You know, having those Telegram signal groups open, tabs all over the place, maybe screenshots, making mindless, exits from the positions and emotional moves. And most of them actually do know what they should be doing, but somehow intention rarely survives execution. And this is exactly the gap I want to talk about today. So in crypto, we do have abstraction layers, new abstraction layers all the time. AI helps us to make decisions, and the tokenization, changes what can be owned, and of course, blockchain itself changes how the value is stored. But I think the next abstraction layer is something totally different. And I think it's programmable capital systems, meaning the systems that can um, that can control the behavior of the capital itself by enforcing the logic rather than human discipline. So it could be one of the defining moments for the next generation of DeFi, actually. Yeah, that's what Alex was mentioning. So retail traders actually oftentimes have pretty good ideas. They have conviction, and so they could be directionally correct in terms of, where market is going. They could know their risk tolerance. They could have their they would know that they need to stop losses and do right things, but somehow they still fail. Why do they fail? Not because the thesis was wrong, right? But because execution collapses over emotions, basically. So they start changing, the sizing. They chase some crazy meme coin. So basically, the trading edge, is lost not in the initial analysis, but rather in execution itself. Right. So here I want to get a little bit more provocative and say that what we often call investing is could be just a set of manual actions pretending to be a strategy. So what I mean is a strategy, the system for strategy could be those levels you get in the screenshots rather than the actual system, and the entry conditions that you find there could be the parameters for the system, right? And the risk tolerance, once again, could be not what people remember to do, but the enforcements that could put into those systems. So, um, like, let's be honest. Currently, the most popular system is human discipline, and this is insane because we built so much. We have on-chain settlements, we have like cross-chain swaps, zero knowledge proofs, and everything else, but we still rely on basically future ourselves behaving rationally, and this is crazy and outrageous. So there is this gap, or not gap, but more like mismatch. And mismatch is that most protocols think in terms of transactions, and people think in terms of the goals, totally different things. Nobody wakes up in the morning saying, "Oh my God, I need to, swap this crypto from asset A to network B, whatever." Nobody thinks, "Oh, better routing would be something I'm driven of." No, people think about things like, I'm bullish on Ethereum. But I don't trust myself for the entry timing, and I want to buy dips, right? Or you could say, I want passive income without much interference with the strategy to keep it running in the background. Or you can say, if you could really, really want something like, when market changes, I want to be protected, right? So all of these things, again, not transactions, they're capital behavior, right? So what we want to solve is not like routing, like in swaps, but we want to actually produce capital behavior policy. And yeah, I call it an intense gap, if I may. And it's basically the space between what users actually want and how capital behaves. And in between, in this space, we have crazy things like manual decisions, changing context, and emotional behavior, and all kinds of other things that introduce failure modes, basically. Um, and yeah, when let's go back to the basics, and that's where it becomes interesting. When people mention intents, the actual definition of the term is totally different depending on the who's talking about it. And protocols like across and anoma, they have this basic architecture where intent is a state B where you want to be from state A, and the whole job is to resolve it. So we are building something very different, and because this approach, more like technical approach, is only working for single step operations, right? If you really want to sleep at night and have your capital do what you actually wanted it to do in the first place with your intent, with your vision, then this construct of resolving transactions is not really working. You need something else. You need a different um, capital behavior system, right? So let's switch from transactional thinking to policy thinking. So financial intents, as we like when we discuss over a beer with friends about crypto, is something fundamentally different, and people actually need policy as a solution rather than solver's market, which is also great but serves a different purpose. And policy thinking is something like grow my 100K to 1 mil with bounded drawdowns, and there will be example of this, even though it's a funny one. Right. So that policy, how could it look like? And we're trying to coin a new term, which is called fintens. I think it's deserve to be considered this way, because we found this common denominator of pretty much any financial capital behavior you can find out there, and not only crypto, by the way. It could encompass other financial instruments and stock, and by processing thousands of um, typical scenarios and needs from the real world, we came down to a elegant and beautiful schema that incorporates all the basic elements of this policy behavior, that consists of course, desired outcomes as a sort of description where we want to be, but also everything else that make it deterministic. And I'll stop here for a second. Just think of anything that you dream of can actually be deterministically executed, and of course executable because it's deterministic with our execution engine. So it has everything that you need for a good strategy: constraints, execution logic, rules here, failure modes, and of course attribution to actually evolve your strategy and improve it over time. You don't see this like fine fonts on the right, but this is an example of how a strategy looks like after a conversation with LLM that guides you first with root cause analysis and onwards to defining all those elements that you might not even think of. Like retail people don't know that they need a risk envelope, and it can suggest and then actually define those parameters together and save them on that FinTent policy document that is executable. Right, so briefly how this looks from the architecture standpoints, we have three phases: intent clarification, canonical orchestration, execution environments, which basically means that on phase one, you're talking to an LLM that knows, it's not just conversation, right? It's not about being nice or knowing trade or quant trading or anything like this. It is actually guiding you towards creating that policy that we need on the second stage. So the output is a set of the primitives from the schema. Yeah, here's a good example. I want passive income without much risk. And then through the conversation, it discovers that, what assets, what's universe, what environments it will operate in and define it. And the result is this canonical policy that covers everything needed for the execution, and the execution environments, which is basically a way of put to work, that final idea of making your capital work the way you want while you sleep. So it is working while you sleep. Yeah, and so, I mean, this is a ridiculous example. Make me $1 million, and if you were to tell this to a friend, they would probably laugh. Or if you put it into pretty much, if you put it into your favorite chat LLM, it will just discuss like what it is. Whereas our system can actually ask you things like, okay, well, how much money you have in the beginning? If you have $1, that's kind of difficult. But if you have like 100K, right? Oh, okay. So what's the time horizon? 5 years. Okay, then it gradually, what's your risk appetite? And finally, it can give you options and produce a blueprint for actually turning this 100K into 1 mil within realistic time frame. So just like with any strategy, it would condense, distill it to the elements that are executable, and you can even enforce like some risk components to it. So yeah, even though this is a funny example, it still is fully workable example that we'll be able to process. So if we compare to the tools that retail traders currently have in the market, many of them actually address parts of the flow pretty efficiently. So robo advisors could tell you like how to balance your portfolio. Copy trading could give you sneak peek into edge. Maybe you can steal some ideas. Bots would be super disciplined, right? That have no emotions and DCA into your preferred asset. Signal providers might know, 1% of them, what they're doing and actually give you a certain edge based on the research. But all in all, this is all pretty scattered and fragmented, and there's no end-to-end system that can actually convert your intent into something that you can run yourself. You need to jump between those systems to make it work. And let's just run through the great products that are out there that are working on intents across this great example, having this markets of cross-chain transfers. So it does its job well, but the policy is out of scope completely. Like it's just transaction based, right? And Norma built a beautiful architecture for intents, and it has a platform where solvers can compete to achieve them. So this is pretty architecturally advanced project, but still, it's about transaction level once again. And there are some beautiful, most recent AI-based interfaces that can guide you through your thinking about what you're trying to achieve quite efficiently, but then they will fail to actually move to the execution state, or some of them will only try to point you to the quantitative trading direction, for example, whereas you do not necessarily want to, this is not your initial intent. So yeah, programmable capital systems, hopefully a new category altogether, is what we're aiming to create. Hopefully there will be quite a lot of segments that actually have the need for that. And the project is called Gorge Finance, and we're actually building this. Right now we have a prototype of this intent compiler already working. So if you're curious, get in touch and I'll be happy to share both the presentation and the link. Yeah. Thank you.